let's say
rules,
guidelines.
yeah.
Do those guidelines exist today? I'm not aware that there is a standard for LaTeX, but once again, I could certainly be mistaken.
There are guidelines for authoring LaTeX. I don't think there are many guidelines for accessibility of LaTeX. And that's why I said that the thing will, to a large degree, have to be developed in the field, in the sense of, well, your checker said the document was okay, but these people had these problems with it. I've had some contact. I went to a talk about a project at the OU where they got the Royal National Institute for the Blind to do testing on mathematics, and they found unexpected problems in terms of screen reading of the mathematics they produced. And in some sense, these things can't be predicted. They're learned experience. They're learned knowledge. They arise from experience. So I don't know what the state of the art is, and that would certainly be part of the project.
How would one know if it's the way, you know, the syntax of the LaTeX, if you want to call it that? How would you determine if the problem is with LaTeX or with the tool that you're using to process LaTeX?
Well, I'm hoping to separate out those two things. So that
okay, gotcha.
If the tool says it's okay, then we'd expect every reasonable system to work on that. There's something a bit similar in programming. The C programming language, which Unix is written in, to begin with, was very, very permissive, and all sorts of strange things were allowed. And a separate program called lint was developed that would pick up all the dodgy things. And as time went on, more rules were added to lint. And so more dodgy things were picked up. And as I recall, as language evolved, rules migrated from lint into the language itself. So I'm looking at a situation where this is the social side of it, is that if people are using it and reporting problems with it, not technical problems, but problems in terms of the reporting of the accessibility or the inaccessibility, then the software becomes a repository of user experience. And I think that's what you want for an accessibility checker. A large part of it has to be a repository for user experience. The other thing to think about accessibility checkers is there are web accessibility checkers which work quite well, and they usually say, well, we've checked it by automatically, but you have to look at various things yourself. And they have a very important, I think, cultural and, so to speak, normative value, which is, if you produce a website that should be accessible and it fails the automated test, then you really got egg on your face, because you haven't done that test yourself. And so you're sort of nudged into doing that test, and it can even be a condition of acceptance. And then having done that test, you're primed to doing the other things as well. You know, instead of just ignoring it, you're sort of required to take some action about it. So it may be that it will have that sort of benefit as well, but I can't say. It's just unpredictable. What I didn't realize until I was preparing for this talk, or this tech hour, was the symbiosis, if you like, between a tech accessibility checker, LaTeX accessibility checker, and portable tech documents. Because if you're trying to create an accessible document, then the checking of the accessibility is part of the portability package. And so you need something easily installed that gives a reproducible result to say, this is the accessibility score of the document. That's one of the important outputs.
Maybe I could toss in an example here, Steve. When Don Knuth and wrote TeX and Leslie Lamport wrote LaTeX, they were targeting primarily printed media because good high resolution screen displays didn't exist, but they were totally familiar with scientific journals and books. And so the model that TeX and LaTeX use is that we take some markup, for example, a chapter or section command in LaTeX that really gets translated into change the font to this and make the text somewhat larger and perhaps leave some space above the heading and so on. And then put that information into the output stream, the DVI file or the PDF file. Now here's the problem is that by the time it reaches DVI and PDF, there's no hint as that this was really a chapter heading or section heading. And so a PDF viewer that wanted to give an overview of all of the chapters and sections in an electronic book would have no information to do that. So you really need to interpose something extra in that markup, which can be done totally transparently. And I suspect things like the accessibility package do that to get into the, say, the PDF file information that this is indeed a section heading. Because a sighted person will pick up a book and riffle through the pages and quickly identify the chapter starts and look at the running headers, but an visually impaired person is going to have to rely on an audio rendition of the table of contents or the section headings. So accessibility means getting that extra level of markup in such a way that it appears in the output format. And that's a critical point. And we often forget that, those of us who are sighted and are used to creating some input that creates a pleasing visual output. But we forget that there are other forms of output that are needed in other circumstances.
So let me rephrase what you just said, maybe in a sentence. If I am blind and I'm using a screen reader with a PDF document that was generated from LaTeX, even though I intended to have headings of different levels and so on, those may not pass through to the PDF and be available to the screen reader, the blind user, to use to navigate the PDF file. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll follow up on that with something relating to web pages, which is that when you use a screen reader, you want to navigate by the level of heading, the H1s, the H2s, the H3s. Now, an H1 is a logical or semantic markup, and the style sheet associated with the web page gives various characteristics such as font and background and size and spacing. So the style sheet provides visual cues to the sighted reader that it's an H1. If, however, you simply had a span or a par with a particular class associated to it, a class is just a little bit of extra information, a bit meta information, and then the style sheet gave exactly the same styles that it would give to an H1, the sighted person sees exactly the same, but the blind person doesn't know that there's an H1 there at all, because it's not marked up as being an H1. So the words used in markup are tags. So you imagine every piece of the document has got a little tag saying, I'm an H1. I'm a hyperlink. I'm something that's emphasized. And it's the tags that the screen reader uses to find its way around. It doesn't use the style information at all. But when you typeset a LaTeX document, the tags get lost, the tags get forgotten. All that's happened is the tags are used to process, the tags are used as instructions for typesetting, and then they're left on the floor.
Okay.
And Nelson is nodding, so I got that right, I think.
Yeah.
So I like this because it's unexpected, because what we're having is we're having a non-technical conversation that's related to user needs mediated by Steve. So we're talking this technical stuff as if everybody understands it, and a lot of people don't, but it's important in various ways.